Transformation, it's an equation, equals an experience plus the integration of that experience. Integration is often more important. And that wise old man said to me, he said, Gautam, you need to know, success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. And in my time, I've met fair share of really successful people. And the one thing that is common among all of them, unanimously, is that they have a very clear life vision. There's a few water lilies. You put them in your pond, and every year they double. Every year they double, and then in 30 years, your pond will be filled with water lilies. You'll have kids, and maybe your grandkids would be there. It would be a beautiful thing. And you're like, okay, that sounds amazing. Let me put those water lilies. And in 30 years, your pond will be filled with water lilies. But what that means is in 29 years, it will only be half full. And in 28 years, it will only be quarter full. And most people give up before that. Okay, what I want to talk about here is, how many of you have had some amazing breakthroughs or insights? Raise your hands. Now, raise your hands clearly. Put them down. Clearly raise your hands if you'd say, this is one of the most incredible insights I've ever had in my life. Raise your hands. Now, these are, breakthrough moments, right? And Harish touched upon it, and we were talking about it for breakfast. How do you take a moment of insight, a moment of aha moment, and this moment where you're breaking down, right? This is such a big release. How many of you felt some chills when you did the roar? How many of you felt it? So unique, right? That's an experience, and that's a breakthrough experience, but that's not real transformation, right? And I've been still a humble and excited student of transformation now for 14 years, and one of the definitions I like about transformation is I got from Christina Mund now. She's a co-founder of Mind Valley, and she describes it as transformation, it's an equation, equals an experience plus the integration of that experience. Integration is often more important, especially the ones who are psychonauts here and using psychedelic medicine as responsibly. Is the experience is there, but is the integration what you do in the next 3 to 6 months? That is the thing that creates real benefits, right? So it's transformation equals experience plus the integration plus the catalyst that you can use in the equation is support. That's what we are here for, right? And what I want to share with you is a framework that helped me quite significantly, right? And it's a private framework. A bunch of you expressed over the last 2 days, hey, all the psychedelic ones especially, oh, how do you do them? Can we do them with you? The answer is maybe, right? But there's certain ways that it's a framework that I take a few people through, right? And it's like very high level, and I only do it with my tribe, and my tribe is this, but the people who really get me are the ones who are in the same boat as me, right? Which is, for me, people in the leadership role, especially CEOs and entrepreneurs. And there's a specific reason for that. I would, if I can say this, dare I say it, right? Even if you have a co-founder, they may not understand the pressure that you are going through. How many of you are CEOs or entrepreneurs here? Do you resonate with this? The pressure and the load that is felt on the shoulders, it's hard for somebody else to get it. It's hard to describe it. And at the same time, you need to be the strongest rock, right? And so the road is very, very long. The load is very, very heavy, and it feels that nobody around you gets you. It's very hard. People can try to understand and sympathize, can speak from a place of, oh, yeah, it's okay, you can manage it, but it's very hard for people to understand it, right? And over the last 4 years, I've been developing this framework, and I started doing it with my tribe, the people who are really in the same boat as me. And we do it on a one-on-one or small group setting basis, and it's like a minimum of a year commitment, and we do minimum $10,000 investment. So these are really high-level people that we are working with. But what I want to give to you, because I believe this framework, I unconsciously was applying in my life for the last 10 years already. I was nowhere close to it. And my intention here is to just allow that framework to be shared here, and to the best of your availability, resource availability, and the abilities that you have, you can apply it. And I have so much confidence that this will make your next 12 months from this summit the most transformational 12 months of your life. So my intention here is to share some framework that has been of value to me, that allows you to be applied in your life, and you come next year, and if there's one gift you're thinking of giving me, is I want to hear the story, how it changed you, because I truly believe in it. And for me, I was unconsciously in this process for a very long time, but I started LifePlugin in 2017, and I was started as a passion project, right? And then I was still in my other job, which I really loved, with Mind Valley, right? And by, I think, September, October 2018, like almost a year and a half later, that's when I left Mind Valley, and I was CEO for the whole time, right? But after 2018, I became full-time CEO, and things started feeling very heavy. It was the first time, I moved away from Malaysia, which is where we were living when we were working for Mind Valley. I moved to Paris, amazing problem in life. I moved there, right? I'm feeling a bit alone and heavy pressure. That was the time where, I felt like my baby is very vulnerable, and I need to do everything I can to make it survive. That's the stage I was in, right? The CEO is resonating. Like it only you know it. Everybody else feels, okay, they're doing well, so inspiring. And then inside there's this fire, right? And that fire drives you to do many things, and I'm grateful for that. That's my karma. That's the dharma that's the gift and pain I've been given, and through which I will, it will unfold in certain ways. I believe that, right? But when I was in that state, it became to a point where I felt that I needed to do everything, right? CEOs. I want to do everything. It takes more time to explain it, but I could just do it. And there was a time where I was doing like around 30 calls in a day. Imagine 30, and then follow up WhatsApp messages. These are people who want to attend LifePlugin Summit, people who want to speak at LifePlugin, people who want to invest in LifePlugin, people who have some other ideas about LifePlugin, all the calls, right? And at the same time, feeling that I don't want to let people down. Like, these are not just my employees, this is my co-founder, right? He was my old friend. I don't want to let him down, right? My wife at the time, I don't want to let her down. We started hiring people, and the pressure was just building up, because in that moment, this was one of those stages where I thought this will break. And so I was in extreme pressure. And there was a time I remember my days would start at 8 a.m. and they will end around midnight, and I would be in my bed and I would just extremely exhausted. There's no more energy, and I would just roll in my bed, right, left to right, and just not able to sleep. One day I got really so frustrated, got out of the bed, put 4 layers on because it's like 0 degrees outside, and I just went for a walk and didn't stop for the next 2 hours. I just wanted to get so tired just so that I can fall asleep. And it was still not working properly. It was the first time in my life I felt that, hey, my health was like significantly improving. Every other marker was significantly improving. That was the first time it started to take a downturn. And I started getting more stressed. My sleep was suffering. I was gaining more fat. I was having more cravings in my life. And I felt that I was not in integrity with the things that I'm doing in this world and the things that I'm teaching here. That was the only time I felt that. It is the only time, I think, if I reflect in my life, when I came very close to having a regret. That maybe I left too early. Maybe I jumped ship full time too early. Maybe this was too stressful. Maybe I got trapped by this idea of being an entrepreneur and changing the world, and it's too exciting. I was having all those thoughts. And in one of those cold walks, I made a decision. This is the end of the year, December 2018, and I sent this message to about 10 of my friends. One of them. A few of them are here, but they're not paying attention, so I didn't put them there. I sent it to Christina, and I said this, even though I had an incredible 2018, the past few weeks had been challenging emotionally, physically. Definitely the most stressed I've ever been in years, to the point where I was regretting some decision, not that I've done recently. Not Celia, she's golden, still true. But now I'm charging myself and trash talking myself to make 2019 the best year possible by leaps and bounds, right? But we'll be back on track in no time. And this is my tribe, so just expressing gratitude to them. And what happened after, in the next 10 to 11 months, is what I started doing. This is December 31st. I sent them the message, the Happy New Year message. There's a lot more love that I expressed, so I just wanted to share this small snippet, which is useful. But what happened after is that I started integrating and putting consciousness into what have I learned in the last 10, 12 years from all my teachers, all my mentors, that I can make this happen. This is the only time where actually I thought, hey, this year is going to be the best year of my life. What can I do? in all my humility, with every single thing I know, how might I turn this ship around? And then what unfolded after for me was really, again, I shouldn't say it because Harish just mentioned in the last session, this still feels lucky. The fifth element has always been there in my life, right? But it changed everything. LifePlugin grew more than 100% in the next 11 months. We measured in November. So from December to November, I got into the fittest shape of my life when I was 30 years old. For the first time, I got six-pack abs. First time ever. Thank you. One person. No matter how much you appreciate, not doing that right now. Okay, the other thing that happened, I got married. It was one of the most beautiful ceremonies. I got closer to my friends than I've ever been before. And I got my first ever paid speaking engagement, which was a big thing for me for where I started from, right? It's huge. And I did that all while, traveling the most I've ever traveled in my life. I saw the most countries in 2019 at the time of my life that year. And then I celebrated the end of the year by doing, going for an ayahuasca ceremony. And I went to that ceremony not to heal anything, but to say thank you. And the framework that I want to share with you is what I believe is the thing that got me there. So this framework has been in development in 2019. And then what I did, because I was running that with me, Ronan, and Vadim, right? Just my bros, right? And then we started opening it up and seeing that if we could work with people in my tribe, right? Some people, because it's very, we make a very lame joke. Vadim made a very lame joke before coming here. It's not personal growth anymore. It's very personal growth. And that's the laugh it deserves. I will tell him that's exactly what it deserved. But I do most things for you, some things for me. This one was for me. Right? So we're doing this, and we started to open that process up in small ways to see some pieces if they work with some of the tribe members. Right? Because I thought, hey, this energy is very strong when we do it with just our closest friends. So we opened it up to like 12 people just for one event, not for a whole 12-month program, but we started opening it up with just one event. And that's where Urmi was a part of. That's how I know her. That's where Kunal, do you guys remember this ripped guy that I showed on day one? He was part of that group. Right? That's where we were going through the life visioning process, where he wrote the kind of house he wants, the kind of business accomplishments he wants, the kind of body he wants, and he broke through all the results. And after a year when we had our call, all of them. Is he here? Kunal, are you here? There he is. Am I saying it right? Okay, thank you. He confirms it. Did I pay you for saying that? Okay. I think that's how I made more money. We get abundant mindset. But that's the framework I want to share with you. And I really believe if you can apply, because I started doing this since 2012, right? As a student, no money, right? And those tools are available also free online, right? And I will only do it once a year, 10 to 12 people. And here is the framework that you can all apply. So that's the one I want to share with you. You guys excited for that? Yeah? There's a few things that you need to do. The first one, apply to actually put it on paper, is have a life vision. How many of you have a clear, vivid life vision that is the one that you want to follow? If the hand is not fully up, that's the one that you might want to upgrade. That's the one you might want to upgrade. When I went to Rhythmia, the plant medicine ceremony by the end of the year, I met Jack Canfield. Right? He's the world's #1 success coach right now. He was 77 at that time. Right? And as an excited student, I asked him, hey, Jack, tell me, like, by the third ceremony, you're all like children. Like, you've become like 6-year-old, like whole in spirit, and he's very, very loving. So I say, hey, what can you tell this 30-year-old? Like, I'm on this path, and seems like I'm going in this industry. What can I do to make it, meaningful, not coming from a place of ego, but really successful? And that wise old man said to me, he said, Gautam, you need to know, success leaves clues. How many of you have heard that? That success leaves clues. And in my time, I've met fair share of really successful people. And the one thing that is common among all of them, unanimously, is that they have a very clear life vision. Very, very clear life vision. And you think about this, the most successful companies, what do? Every year, they do a strategy meeting. They go out, they do an off-site, and they don't do it in the office. They go out, do an off-site and say, okay, envision. What are the things we want to accomplish? Where do we want to go? What are our values? Do we need to revise something? Where do we want to head to? right? They set this up, right? And then they have quarterly assessments. Are we on track, off track, still meaningful, not meaningful? And it's the same premise, to not be just the CEO of business, but be the CEO of your life. This was a lesson I consciously had to learn in 2018, December 2018, right? So the idea here is to dedicate some time into envisioning what your life could be. And the trouble I had when I started doing these visioning exercises 10 years ago, I thought quality of life has only one KPI, money, right? Captain Obvious here, right? We already discussed it. But as we start becoming more conscious, we start realizing, yes, that's important, but there's so many other things that are equally, if not more important, right? What about the most important, health, right? What about your relationships? What about your emotional well-being? What about the quality of life? Like, what would you give for an amazing quality of life? Right? What about your social life? Right? There's so many different areas that we can think about, and the more detail in which we paint a vision, what that does. How many of you have heard of this thing? When you put things down on paper, you're 42% more likely to achieve them. You know that, right? There's a study. It's not made up stuff. I forget the name of the university somewhere in US. They actually did the study. They measured this. Right? You also train your reticular activation system. You know that? Right? When you set some goal, when you bring it from the formless into the form, it becomes very clear that that's where I'm going. It gives a sense of certainty, sense of direction. Right? So that's the first step. Have a clear life vision. So what I would invite you to do, right? When you go back, even after this, perfect time, you're perfectly primed in an expanded state. Take a day or two off. Do your own life offsite. Pick 3 to 4 categories. But what I want you to think about is, what would you like that vision to be like? What do you see? And some of you will immediately go into how. Immediately. That's all our strategy meetings between me and Siddhant. Right? And both are needed. There needs to be a healthy tension. But sometimes we have to wear a different hat. So what I want you to think about is what do I want it to look like? Be outrageous. Be unreasonable. And the other thing is why. This will be a reflection of your values. Why do you want it? Right? And when you start exploring why, Vision talks about it nicely. There's the distinction between the means goal and an ends goal. Means goal is I want to do this because so I can get there. And what it does is it restricts our option to get there. And what we want to do is, this is what I want and this is why I want it. I want my health to be a certain way. How does it look like? Be very, very clear. What does it allow you to do and why? Is it for your intimacy? It is for inspiring other people, inspiring your family members to be healthier, taking care of them better, whatever it is. Right? That's the real why. Right? That's mine. Right? So what the vision is, and you can pick multiple categories. I normally do every year that we do health, we do relationships, we do quality of life, emotional well-being, and purpose, which is purpose or career. Right? That can be different from finances. But just what is the gift you want to give to the world? For entrepreneurs, it's often the same. But there can be a slight distinction. Right? And in that, what in detail and why? Just so you know. Because whatever goal you set, it will be a stretch goal. And the why will be the thing that will keep you on track. If the why is not strong enough, you will not pull through. Does that make sense? Easy enough. Right? The next thing is coaching for foundational areas. Now, I see value in coaching and I see value in life coaching. But the thing I see most value in coaching in my life is coaching in foundational areas. It's slightly different to me. What I mean by foundational areas is areas that pay a compounding return over time. Like if you invest in something once and it keeps on paying bigger and bigger and bigger dividends. And compounding effect, this is when you do an off-site meeting, because it's very easy to understand intellectually, but very hard to visualize unless you're zoomed out. When you're attached with the situation, it's very hard to remember that sometime later it will pay dividends. I'll give you an example. Let's say how many had a picture of an ideal home that you would like to live in? Perfect, beautiful, vivid image. Okay, how many of you, does anyone have a water body in that house? Okay. Imagine I come to you and you have a pond in your home, like a water pond, and I say, hey, here you go. There's a few water lilies. You put them in your pond, And every year they double. Every year they double, and then in 30 years, your pond will be filled with water lilies. You'll have kids, and maybe your grandkids would be there. It would be a beautiful thing. And you say, okay, that sounds amazing. Let me put those water lilies. And in 30 years, your pond will be filled with water lilies. But what that means is that in 29 years, it will only be half full. And in 28 years, it will only be quarter full. And most people give up before that. If the foresight of compounding returns is not there. And we understand it. That's why, but what we need to do is have offsites so we can have a zoomed out vision. Hey, these are the skills that I'm investing in. Even if I'm not seeing the returns right now, I will see them some 3 months later, some a year later, some a year and a half later. I'll give you an example. I mentioned on day one, that the only reason why I went to this event and I was coaching there, very high level public speaking workshop. I did that last week in Tallinn. That's why I cough a little bit right now, because we were speaking for 16-hour days. We were sleeping at 4 a.m. and we were back in the seminar hall at 8. Very hard coaching program, right? This is Eric. This is my teacher. And he's arguably one of the greatest public speakers in the world. He's toured around the world with Tony Robbins, speaks with him one-on-one. And he's like the most incredible example I know of someone who can do behavior change. There's a few people in this room have taken WildFit program, right? How many of you have taken WildFit program? How many of you know who this person is, by the way? Eric Edmeades. What he specializes in, he can pick any discipline, from food to public speaking to creating freedom as an entrepreneur, right? Because the another trap that CEOs go through is that you start a business, I will be free, and then you're an employee of every single person that you hired, every single person that you serve, right? So how do you actually create freedom? He's an example of it, and he changes your behavior permanently. So by the time you finish a food program with him, you leave the program hating the thing that you loved eating all your life that you knew was bad for you. It's bizarre. I did the program, and I'm actually 12 kilos heavier in this picture. This is 5 years ago. I did this program with him, and on day 4 of the 5th day of the workshop, I knew I would be different. And this is not really a public speaking workshop as much as it is about self-expression. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But the way the compounding effect works is that I did that workshop. A week later, I said, okay, I learned something new. Now I'm going to, bring my friends together and do a workshop just to share my gifts, just to share the things I'm passionate about. And a week later, I invited a couple of my friends. I went on Facebook, invited a couple of my friends to do a workshop together. And I called that project LifePlugin. 3 months later, I got invited to speak on TEDx, right? And I shared my learning philosophy and behavioral change methodology that I learned from him. I shared that on TEDx. That talk got 7 million views. 6 months later, yeah, thank you. But 6 months later, it's old news. That the reason why I share it's Eric's favorite case study. And I'll share the details why. Because later, maybe when we have time in social, right? But 6 months later, this is for me. This is the guy who speaking in front of 3 people was public speaking to me, right? Let alone in English. I grew up in East Delhi, right? So for me, this is really a big thing. 6 months later, I'm on one of the 2 keynote speakers at an event. The other one being my biggest role model, Vishen, right? Founder of Mindvalley, CEO of Mindvalley. A year and a half later, since the time I did the workshop, then I got invited to speak for the first time where I got paid for it in 2019. A year and a half later, right? And for that 1 hour, they paid for the whole workshop, but that happened 1.5 years later. And this is not even to include, the things that we do with LifePlugin, not even including the things that I get to do now. And it's only getting more compounded. There's an element of constantly engaging and improving that skill that's there, where it keeps on compounding. Does that make sense? Do you guys have some areas where skills have compounded over time that you could not have envisioned? If people would have told me after I finished that workshop, Gautam, what's your ideal vision for, teaching in the world? They could have said, Gautam, be outrageous. And I would have still not be able to pick these goals. I know how I was at the time. So what I want to share with you in the order, the 3 foundational areas that I believe, at least for CEOs and entrepreneurs, are crucial. One is have a loving friend like this. And this is my bro. This is Ronan. How many of you know Ronan? Okay, so he's an incredible teacher. He's the current health and fitness head of Mindvalley. He's coached thousands of people around the world on health and fitness. 8 years ago, we met in Malaysia. right? And when I was going through this challenge in the message that I showed you, the WhatsApp message, he was one of those people. And I said, okay, now I want to work on my health transformation, right? And I thought I knew, I knew a lot about biohacking, and, I've spent time with Wim Hof, Dave Asprey I did ayahuasca with, so I thought I knew. But, there's this Chinese proverb where it say, to know and not to do is to not to know at all. Right? So I said, hey, bro, I know all of these things. I want to put them together, set a stretch goal for myself. Right? And he was in LifePlugin at the time. In 6 months, we created a program. We called it the Look Good Naked program. Right? And we actually went through that program together. And for me, this is how I looked. I was in Mind Valley, and I thought I was fit. I was doing CrossFit. I was still with this body. I was running like a half marathon. I thought I was doing good. Right? In 6 months, it took me from there to there. This picture is for I was telling someone, it's only for my child. I just took one picture. It's only for my child. So unless he messes with me, I say, hey, do this first and you don't talk to me. Go in your corner. It's for that reason. Right? But I want you to think about this. You think when I did this program and went through this journey with Ronan, do you think it changed my sense of self-esteem? Do you think it gave me more energy to do more work? Right? Do you think it improved my intimacy? Yeah, all of those. Right? You influence one foundational area of your life, it influences every other area. Right? But the trick here is, when we're going into, what I want you to do is have coaching for specific areas as this one. Because you can set a vision and a goal for your health and fitness. Right? Okay, I'm going to lose 5 kilos, 10 kilos. Easy. For some easy, for some more difficult. Right? Easy enough. But it's not a stretch goal. And when you don't have a stretch goal, what happens is you can just run on treadmills for a short period of time and then get the goal. That's it. Few months later, a few years later, you're back to where you started. For coaching for these areas, what they do is you have to learn something new and make it part of your experience. You become something new when you do this. When I was doing this program, it's for anyone who's gone through this extreme, it's 6 months. It was not even healthy, by the way. To do it in 6 months was not healthy. It was just cool. So I did it. Right? And when we were doing this, there was a time when I was eating 1,200 calories, most of them like protein, right? When very, very little. So my body is eating itself. So it's in high stress and you're doing very high training. What that does, after a while you hit a plateau. Because when you're in high stress, your body is producing so much cortisol that it holds on to fat. It's like, hey, there's starvation coming. There's less food. Let's grab onto fat. So it becomes more efficient in burning energy. In essence, your metabolism goes down. Right? So the things that are not so important, your nails, your hair, all of those things, they start to fall. Not useful. But I needed to cut a lot of fat still, more energy needed to burn. And how could I do that without increasing stress? This is something I had to learn. And walking is that classic example. Now, this apparently is the biggest biohack for longevity. Who knew? I didn't. Right? So I was walking around 7,000 steps a day at that time. Right? 7,000 steps a day. And Ronan said, hey, now you cannot produce more cortisol in your body, but you still need to burn more energy. So start walking. And because I had a stretch goal and I had a coach there, I had high accountability, I had to reorganize my whole life so I could start walking more. And Siddhant remembers, Ayush remembers, Wendy remembers, I was doing calls while walking. My business meeting will happen, I was doing all the calls while walking. I started doing investment meetings while walking. Most of the people that are hired in LifePlugin, all the interviews were done walking. And by now, this habit, when I started it there, I did it for 6 months. It's part of my life. Now the phone rings, I am walking. Right? And I was measuring it. I have it in my Aura ring. The week before I came here, the average steps went from 3 years ago, 7,000 to 30,000 steps. Right? That's about half a marathon a day. Without changing my work and other things. It's just my habit changed. And this is for people, it's one of the highest correlating factors with longevity. It reduces stress. It relaxes you more. You think better. You clear your thoughts. And this became a part of my life because I had a stretch goal and somebody needed to guide me through this. I never knew that this small thing, one tiny tweak, would make a huge difference. Right? So things like these would happen if we set a stretch goal. Right? So step one is, when you pick for health, pick a stretch goal that you would need someone to guide you for. That guidance can be in the form of book, so it's like $10, $15. For guys, I know a book called Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. Now, if you want to transform your body and understand the philosophy behind muscle growth properly, there's one book called Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. Has everything. If you have the motivation to apply it, you don't need anything else. Has only 5-star reviews on Amazon. But here's another thing that happens when you're doing the health and fitness work, right? How many of you understand the concept of progressive overload? Yeah. Progressive overload means when you're trying to build muscle, you go to the gym, you lift the weight, right? You say deadlift, right? You lift the weight and you pick a weight that you can only lift 4 to 6 times. It's minimum 4 times, maximum 6. You can't do the 7th. You do that, you rest. Next week you come, you do that, you did 5 last week, this time you do 6. The moment you reach 6, because you can reach 6, then you increase the weight. So next week, you did 60, now you do 70. Now you'll do 4, right? Then you'll do 5. Then next week, 6. You reach 6, then you do 80, right? The premise is that the level of struggle needs to be maintained. The level of struggle needs to be 4 to 6 reps, and the load keeps on getting heavier. That to me is one of the biggest spiritual lessons of life. Right? All the practices that we do, we choose the level of struggle. We choose the level of struggle and we stay in this level of struggle. And if we keep on exercising that muscle, we can take heavier and heavier load. For entrepreneurs, the load is extremely heavy. And we consciously need to engage in activities where set stretch goals so that we can carry more and more. Because the level of struggle would remain. And sometimes someone will drop a heavy bar at you too. It will happen. Right? So, foundational area number 1, health and fitness. And set a stretch goal that is difficult for you to do it by yourself. And find to the best of your ability, how can you learn to become someone new to achieve something? Because when you get there, because you became someone new, that's your new baseline. It's your new baseline. You don't fall back. Does that make sense? Is this interesting? Okay. The next one is mindfulness. This is again another area. We spoke about that yesterday. Shama spoke about it on day 1. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk who recently passed away. He cites this story often. He says that when Vietnamese refugees, when they were traveling in a boat in the sea, and if they would be met with like violent storms or by pirates, if every single person on the boat panics, everything would be lost. But in that moment, even if there's a single person who can find their center and calm, it shows the way for everybody else to survive. That's what mindfulness offers. And to me, that's leadership. Leadership is someone that you look to. We all have someone in our life when shit hits the fan. I think of that person. To me, it doesn't matter what their title is. Right? That's the person I look to. And that's leadership. And it comes from the place, everybody has that within us. Ajahn Chah, this is a Buddhist teacher. He calls it the wisdom of the one who knows. We have that deeper wisdom within us. We've all experienced it. Think about, you fight with someone that you care about, right? Someone that you like. You have a really bad fight with them. They go to bed. Next day you wake up and you feel like, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's sweet. Right? I'm not even angry anymore. It's fine. I love them. Has anyone had that in their life? Right? That's what they call the wisdom of the one who knows. And that's what the mindfulness, training that muscle of mindfulness offers. Practices of mindfulness are the skillful means that allows that wisdom of the one who knows to emerge easier. Because we've also had engagement in conversations where we thought of the perfect thing to say 15 minutes later. Yeah? Because the wisdom of the one who knows was sleeping because we were engaged in reactivity. Right, so what mindful offers is that how can I be more and more present, operate from a place of responding rather than reacting in an old pattern behavior. And it's a lifelong journey, but for CEOs who are required to operate on intuition, required to make fast decisions, who are judged heavily if they're reactive, and they are reactive sometimes, right? It's a very, very valuable skill. Also compounds over time. Like had I not stumbled upon this practice 2.5 years ago, my healing or my recovery from what I went through with Celia would have taken months longer. I could not imagine. Months longer. Right? So I'm deeply grateful for this practice because we will be shaken in many ways. Especially as CEOs, some big things will be shaken. And in those moments, we need to be the person who's centered in the storm. Especially the CEOs. How was it like when you heard the news during the pandemic, first week? Do you remember? Long time ago. Do you remember? Shocking. Right? And there were some people who were breaking down. Right? And then when the stress happens, remember what Shamal was saying. When the stress happens, your true essence starts to show up, whatever level that essence is at. Right? So when we practice with mindfulness, it allows us to be centered in the storm. And it influences every area of your life, every relationship, every conversation. And this is also a skill that compounds. And the easiest thing here to set a stretch goal is going for Vipassana. Right? And it will be a big stretch goal for 80% of you who didn't raise their hands on day one when I asked who talks less. 80% of you talk a lot. Right? You admitted to that. And Vipassana is scary. Right? You're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to make eye contact. You're only allowed to stay within your experience. It is powerful. Right? You do that for 10 days. You come back and have that practice for the next 90 days. It changes things permanently. Because it's easier, very easy thing to set a stretch goal for. Or there's enough trainings, live trainings online, some of them very, very cheap that one can engage in. And this is one aspect, again, for me, it's different from all the other personal growth aspects. Everything else is to get somewhere. I really like it, but it is to get something. It's not to be as much. And I found a lot of value as a leader in any context. You have to be present with whatever is in front of you. There's no option. And this tool allowed me to be better with that thing. And the last thing is self-expression. Now this is through speaking. Because especially as leaders, these are the people who are multipliers. These are like, imagine there's someone who's a doctor. Eric gives this example, right? If there's a doctor and there's who can not speak very well, and there's a doctor who can express truly what they really are on stage. Which one will get hired more? How much more will they get paid? 10 times, sometimes 100 times. Right? And the reason why I put self-expression and not public speaking is you can go do public speaking, go do Toastmasters, refine your words and how do you articulate each and every word and just be that. Great. And the reason why I love Eric's philosophy, and he's asked me to bring this to India, by the way, right? The speaker nation, his ecosystem. The reason why I love his philosophy and his words, that if you want to be a great speaker, go do those things. And those tools and techniques are also available. But if you want to be unforgettable, if you want to really change lives, you got to work on yourself. You work on you. And you work on your own self-expression. So the workshop that we did there was about, breaking all the layers, in which we try to do here too. Break all the layers so that your true essence can emerge. And then use certain tools to express that meaningfully. Right? It's not about how can I just speak amazing on stage, but how do I express my idea to a potential partner? How do I express my love to the person that I love? It's like my friends joke about this. Before, I was the one who brought the language love to a guy. Like, hey, I love you. Nobody ever said that to me. The way you express love is very, very unique. And once you become, comfortable with your own true expression, it influences every area of your life, especially personal ones. Right? So how can you invest in your self-expression? A lot of it is self-work, but then it is the expression of it. For leaders, it becomes the expression of it because every single conversation, you're trying to express yourself. And it's extremely valuable because if that is understood wrong, has a multiplier effect because you are at a multiplying position. It is a nightmare. Of all the CEOs, have you had that? Hey, Gautam, you said this. Or like, yeah, you told me to do this. And then you're saying, no, I didn't say that at all. Right? It's insane. It happens often. Right? And it's whether you are at a professional level or if you want to make a big movement, if you want to make a big change, if you want to care for a child, this is the skill. Self-expression through speaking. So pick these 3 areas and this is where you set stretch goals. Things that will scare you. If you've never been really, really fit in your life, set that goal for yourself. Right? If you've never been able to meditate, just be silent with yourself for half an hour. Go try Vipassana. Right? If you have been able to do that, go take a degree, 2-year degree. I can send you the links for it. right? And find what are the ways through which you can practice self-expression, get comfortable with it. Toastmasters is a great place to start. It's free, by the way. You can actually just join the tribe. It's in every city in India. Do you guys know Toastmasters? Yeah? Okay. The third thing is altered states of consciousness. This is, we've been excitedly talking about it through psychedelics throughout. This was the first time when Mike asked on day one, how many of you are interested in doing ayahuasca? Was hauntingly beautiful to see how many hands went up. Right? But there's multiple ways that you can access altered states of consciousness. Right? And Stephen Kotler wrote a really nice book on it called Stealing Fire, New York Times bestselling. One of the things he says is that if you are an entrepreneur or a leader today, and if you're not using altered states of consciousness to expand your mind, creative thinking, to envision bigger stuff for your company, for your people, and for the world as an entrepreneur, you're already behind in the game. It's very, very important if done right. So my invitation to you before you actually go into this is don't listen to me or anybody here on stage. It's very easy to make it sound very cool on stage. It's very easy. But if it's speaking to you and if you've never done it before, please do your research and read from qualified sources, not Instagram reels, but qualified sources and books about the subject, because it can literally advance your life 10, 15 years in one night. I know of people like this person's story who quit decades of addiction of their life in one night. But I also know one case derailed 10 years ago, 10 years behind. It's very important and needs to be treated with respect. And I don't think it's for everyone. It might be. I don't think so. I don't want to operate with that belief at least. So do that. But once you're treating it with respect, this is what could happen. Do you guys remember Shamal from day one? This is one of those retreats where he's one of those 12 people, my tribe. And we did plant medicine. And Mike is one of our facilitators who guided us there. This is Shamal. Yeah, the people behind you don't see. We're all lying down. The experience is just internal. So everybody else is lying down, as you can see. Shamal, this is right somewhere here, and I'm seeing Shamal. He's lying down. All of a sudden, something comes up to him and takes his notebook, does this, falls, not goes down, falls, collapses again. 15 minutes later, falls. That was his trip for 4 hours. I'm not joking. That was his trip for 4 hours. In the evening, I said, hey man, you okay? I said, bro, I gotta tell you, man, he's written 4 books, all non-fiction, and we're very close. So he told me his goal now is to venture out into something new, right? And he wanted to write a non-fiction, but never did that in his life. We went through the ceremony. In one ceremony, all that he wrote, he said, I got my whole transcript of the book. Great, right? One of the things they will tell you with altered states is also to not make a life-changing decision for the next 3 days, because the book idea might seem incredible and only a mother would like it. It could happen. It could happen, right? So they say, don't do that. And then 2 weeks later, he comes back to Barcelona. Oh, no. I'm not sure if I met him in Barcelona. I met him like 2 weeks later. And he said, hey, bro, I got a book deal. And the transcript that someone asked me to share it with them, and they actually they paid me to write that book. So that's the book I'm writing. It's 95% complete as of this summit, by the way. So the medicine can open gateways to so much creativity, so much beauty in our lives. It's incredible, but needs to be treated with respect. So if the invitation speaks to you, there are places that have legal licenses. We can share those resources, not from stage, not through recording. And there are certain trusted people. Mike is one of those. Right? If it's really speaking to you, if you really think it is for you, go there. Right? But treat it with respect. Next one is find your tribe. This is the one, by now, you should already feel it. The thing that happened on stage in the last session. Their success, did it feel like your success? Did it touch you? Did it move some emotion within you? When you find your tribe, there are people, I can say this is my tribe, but there are some people who share the same goals and aspirations and same visions as me. right? They are the ones who I can feel understood fully by. Let's say for me, those are CEOs and entrepreneurs, because I know their struggle and they know that I know their struggle and I know that they know my struggles. It's understood, right? So that's my real tribe. And when that happens, you celebrate each other's success. What I didn't tell you is that when I did the 6-pack abs challenge with Ronan, I didn't do it alone. We actually brought it to the LifePlugin tribe, and we called that Look Good Naked challenge, and we took 32 people on the same journey from one summit to the other. And that picture, the reason why that picture was took was because we promised next summit we come and we do a photo shoot so that you have something to remember. So that was the added motivation. And when that happens, is that what we started doing is, one day we'll get in trouble for it, but we started sending each other naked pictures every week. This is my progress. This is my progress, right? And every single week. And then when you are doing better, you're feeling good. And what is the other person feeling? Joy and competition, fire, right? But you are all in the same journey, so you're all pushing each other to grow. When that happens, it becomes beautiful. And more than that, when you're actually having a particular goal and when you're doing it with people, it supercharges the goal achievement because the whole group is doing it. I mentioned before on day one, this is one of the most meaningful quotes I've ever heard. If you want to go somewhere fast, you go alone. That's, to me, personal growth industry. But if you want to go somewhere far, you go together, right? So this is your tribe, and this is why the people that I mentioned again and again, just by their first name basis, without even caring if you would understand them or not, they're that special. We've been through those journeys together, right? So when you have that, it's unbelievable, right? It uplifts everything. So what I would tell you here is that if you have an idea of the vision, and you would have already, how many of you have connected with some really beautiful human beings here? Raise your hands. New ones, right? Incredible. Those of you who didn't raise your hands, we'll do something special for you. Okay. No, but the people that you have found here, make sure, have some conversation, have the intention. Not like, hey, would you like to be my accountability buddy? Often, it doesn't work with me, right? But it happens naturally when you set an intention. I would like to have a journey for the next 12 months. Right now, I'm setting the premise for you, so I'm giving you permission. For the remaining of the summit, find 3 to 5 people that you're naturally inclined towards, saying, hey, I'm going to share my 2 most important goals of my life for the next 12 months. Would you be open to going through that journey with me? And we do this together. We hold each other accountable. We push each other to grow. And we come back together at LifePlugin Summit and set a big goal for yourself. You do something wild when you come next year. Do some celebration. Something. Not even summit. Just go somewhere. Travel together. Would you be open if we achieve it together? We get a goal next year. We celebrate it together. Ronan and I have a goal. We will both cover our arm next year for our new stretch goal for fitness if we achieve it. So I'm giving you this opportunity, setting this frame for everyone here. Find 3 to 5 people that you can share 1 to 2 stretch goals for this year until November 2023. Set it and see if you can do it with at least one person. 3 to 5, great. At least one person. That would be a game changer. Because when you find your tribe, something very interesting happens. The things become fun, and it's inevitable that you go into experiences together. It's inevitable. You'll not just see each other next year. You'll have meetups. You'll go see each other in their cities. Right? This will happen. This is what is happening here, by the way. This is a tribe of every single person here is inspired by living personal growth as a lifestyle. The people here, every single person in this room, one of the things that unites you is that you recognize the difference between personal growth and personal knowledge. There's a difference, and it takes effort. It requires humility. It requires a learning mindset. This is a fixed mindset. Oh, I know this, and they're just a talker. And some of them would naturally come and filter through, and then we don't see them often. But this tribe, through 5 years of filtration, brings people who recognize the difference between personal growth and personal knowledge. So every single person, when that happens, we come together every 6 months, right? We stir some emotions. How many of you have had your emotions stirred? Big time? How many of you have had some aha moments? How many of you have had some incredible memories that will last you for months or years to come? That's what happens when you find your tribe, whether it's here or somewhere else. You go into deep immersive experiences. You share You share vulnerable moments together. You reinforce what's your purpose, why you are in this tribe together. You reinforce that idea, right? And then you have a great time. That's the best part. When that happens, that's what I call deep immersive experiences. And this is what LifePlugin Summit is about. This is what all the adventures with our friends are about. One of the ways you can do it, when you find that person, hopefully, right after the session, one of the ways it will happen is that go do your life offsite together. Right after this, maybe sit in Goa somewhere. If you have the ability to chill, go somewhere, spend 1 or 2 days and just guide each other. Hey, what is the vision and why, not how, right? Guide each other. Just take some time off, right? Just do that. That would be, and chill in the evenings. Party, but not too hard. Right? Do those things together. Right? One of the reasons when Harish was mentioning, when you have the right energy, you start pulling that energy together. When you're in your element, I believe also the right people, the right opportunities start to show up. One of our board members is one of those examples. I met him 3 years ago. More than 3 years ago, and he's so successful and so humble. I wouldn't even have thought of asking him to join on our board. Like, he sold his last company for $500 million, and he's in a private mastermind with the Bill Gates and the Bransons and everyone. He calls them by their names. And if you look at him, he's one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. He appointed himself as LifePlugin board member, and he mentors me like his own son. A very, very, very kind guy. Some of the people who were interested in investing in LifePlugin, they've had conversation with him. Right? Everything filters through him. And normally, any new opportunity he brings to LifePlugin, like, hey, yeah, you talk to this guy, you talk to this business leader. I don't think I ever now get nervous for any meeting where I have to describe LifePlugin. Not ever. And I love talking about LifePlugin. I talk about LifePlugin in my sleep. Right? But he sent our profile recently to the CEO of Aman Giri. I didn't know what this thing was. I didn't even know this industry existed. This is an industry that does ultra luxury experiences in hotels, and $5,000 a night to stay in a hotel. Where I grew up, this is so far out. I started feeling nervous. After this, I'm going to New York and have that conversation with them. So this time I actually asked Jayesh, our board member, hey Jayesh, I am eternally grateful to you that you keep on throwing these opportunities at us. And he sent our proposal saying, hey, you got to take LifePlugin, and LifePlugin will do your, do transformational experiences with your wellness retreats. Pretty big. And I said, can you tell me why are you doing this, right? Like, why are you so supportive of LifePlugin? And he said, the unique thing about LifePlugin that I see is that there's a lot of people doing transformational work, but this is the only space that does it in a cool and fun way. And that's what's needed. There's a bit more playfulness to it. And it's true, yeah. Fully receiving it. When you meet our group of friends, and you'll see it as us at parties, we'll have a really good time. Right? We are here to celebrate things. Right? And part of the reason why you guys are here, you guys are attracted here, is because you believe the same thing. Right? You believe that personal growth or working on ourselves doesn't need to be serious. If it's not the most fun, it won't stay a lifelong adventure. Why would it? It cannot. Right? So this is the last thing. Find the best means. Right? When we were 8 years ago, we would take trips to mountains. Ayush would drive, Rahul would be there, Siddhant would be there. We would just drive in the mountains, do our own thing. Right? And those were the means that we had available. But to the best of your ability, go find your deep immersive experiences with your tribe members. Right? And you have some frameworks to think about. What is your life vision? What are the areas that you'll set stretch goals for? Does that make sense? And so this is one of the things that we did with our, high-end retreats. And this is where we do 10 to 12 people. Some of you asked, this is what we used to call this was LifePlugin Adventure. And now we're changing it because the program will be different. But this is the 4-day retreat where we go into life visioning. We do plant medicine together. There's a lot of intimate, group coaching, one-on-one coaching and guidance, right, for a small group of people. And these are the people that I work through. We started with just the event. And then some of them we started working on a yearly basis, one-on-one, right? So this is how we do it with LifePlugin. But this is the framework that you can apply. These are 5 things. These are the 5 things. Have a life vision, get coaching for foundational skills. These are your self-expression, your health and fitness and mindfulness. And use altered states of consciousness responsibly. Find your tribe and join deep immersive experiences. As I mentioned before, if there is one way you can give an amazing gift to me, is that you come back next year, say, hey, this is what we did, and this is where we are. And this is where the stories like Kunal or Abhishek, like many stories that I will often cite, they inspire us, because we run through the same process again and again, first with our friends, then with a few people, then with individuals, and every time it works. So I wanted to share this framework with you. Guys, thank you so much for joining here, and I will see you after the breakout session for the closing. Thank you all.